ain't talking about a fade or a crop. Steady hand, know when to stop. It's just a little off the top. Whoa, easy now.
It's our cut one game a little off the top, and we're cutting one former fantasy football star from the College Football Hall of Fame. Earlier this month, the College Football Hall of Fame announced their 2026 ballot, which included some fantasy football legends. I want you to cut one of the following from making the College Football Hall of Fame, starting with Marvin Harrison. He was from Syracuse, led the Big East in receiving in 1995, was top 10 in touchdowns in 3 straight seasons. There's also Cam Newton of Auburn. After a tough start to his college career, he ended up leading Division I football for a few years. Cam Newton then made his way to Auburn in 2010. Would not only win the Heisman Trophy, but to win the Tigers their first national championship in nearly 2 decades. Mark Ingram of Alabama, also on the College Football Hall of Fame ballot this season. Ingram had a storybook 2009 season where he not only led the SEC in rushing with nearly 1,700 yards, but 20 total touchdowns, would go on to win the Heisman Trophy and secure Alabama their first natty since 1992. And there's Robert Griffin III of Baylor. A solid career at Baylor, was capped off with a milestone season, which included 47 total touchdowns, finishing second in the country in total touchdowns responsible for. He did go on to win the Heisman Trophy that year, but was never able to climb the mountaintop, even in his own conference. So, Steve, with this being said, Robert Griffin III, Mark Ingram, Cam Newton, and Marvin Harrison, looking at their college resume alone, who are you cutting from making the CFB Hall of Fame?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I want to take just one moment to let both of you know, though, a little fun trivia fact. A factoid is not, in fact, a fact. It is a thing that sounds like a fact, could be a fact, but is not, in fact, a fact. But a fact that I will give you is that Mark Ingram is the guy who should be left off of the College Football Hall of Fame ballot of these 4. He is the one who is the least memorable of all of them. Cam Newton is the number 1 by far. Follow that up with RG3, whose season was legendary as well. Marvin Harrison was undeniable in his greatness, even though it was back about the days I was born. Yeah. And then Seth was still a thought at that point. And yeah, you wind up with Mark Ingram, who, while he was very good, he was followed up by a series of guys who were just as good as him. In college, it was the Alabama machine. No one could stop them. They had the best offensive line in the world year after year after year. He is most memorable in college football for standing next to Derrick Henry at the 50-yard line and looking like a child. So I would say leave Mark Ingram off the ballot.
What do you think, Eric?
10 of 10. No notes. I could not agree more wholeheartedly with Steve Lawson.
Really?
This is precisely the thought process and logic that I had in terms of approaching this question, right? Like we talk about Mark Ingram, who had a phenomenal season in that 2009 campaign where he won the Heisman, but he is shining on an all-star team, and there are plenty of elite runners that came before him and that came after him in this very same program, where the other guys that we talked about are all guys that had individual moments or individual snapshots of greatness that was prolific. It broke through the noise. They absolutely established themselves as the guy that put the team on their back and brought them to whatever new height that they hadn't been to before. So, maybe it's unfair to Mark Ingram because he can't really help that the team around him was that good. But when we're talking about guys that, take fairly middling programs, to put it nicely, and bring them into the conversation and create so many memorable moments that stand the test of time, that's a pretty clear line of demarcation in terms of haves and have-nots on this list.
I thought this would be a clean sweep and not in the direction of Mark Ingram, honestly, because how I went about this is I went with, like, who can you not tell the story of college football without? And while I love Marvin Harrison, he played in a conference in the Big East that's now defunct for football. Also, in the 3 years that he was a starter, they're never able to get past Miami or Va Tech in that Big East. And you can't say the same about Cam Newton, whose Iron Bowl came back, as it would become to known, could be a page itself. RG3, Ingram, both could at least be a paragraph Ingram helped lead Bama back. This was before Bama was Bama, guys. This is when Saban was initially leading them back to promise. And with RG3 providing one of the most shocking seasons ever, he's obviously in this conversation too. I think Marvin Harrison is the easy cut here, and our guy Mark Ingram catching unnecessary strays. I mean, this guy, absolute killer back in the turn of the century or the decade there.
Yeah, but he was good. Don't get me wrong, but everyone was good. Everyone was good on that team, and you can't distinguish him from the others. Syracuse has never had a player like Marvin Harrison play the wide receiver position before or since. Baylor
Trevor
never had
Pena was pretty good last year. He crossed the grand.
RG3 was a 1 of 1 at Baylor. Baylor was put on the map because of RG3, and Cam Newton, no one. He may be the greatest college football quarterback ever in terms of that one season. It was so good. I mean, you can write the story of college football without Mark Ingram, because you could write the story of Alabama without Mark Ingram, because there were so many better running backs that came.
Yeah. To be fair, I do think it's a decision between Mark Ingram and Marvin Harrison. I just I enjoy being alive too much to talk any mess on Marvin Harrison Sr. Phenomenal college player. Maybe the greatest. It's a travesty that he's only getting it now, honestly.
That is true.